Welcome, guys, to chapter 2 of Genesis. We're going to do all the breaking apart, the beautiful scriptures with the scriptures. And we're going to let the Holy Spirit truly guide us tonight in understanding. I pray that everyone has an open heart and an open mind to be ready to receive what truly comes from His Word, what comes from Him, and at the same time to have a heart ready to let go of anything that came prior that did not come from Him. I said it last week, and I'll say it every single time. Every time that we open the scriptures, we should come with a humble heart, ready to let go and ready to receive. And I say this because a lot of times people come to Bible studies just ready to receive, not understanding that we have to be just as um what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Basically just a proactive and also letting go. That's not the word, but whatever. Of letting go because of the fact that we have been through many generations that sadly have gone through deception. And I'm not saying that we have it all figured out because we do not, and that we have it all, that we have it all together. We are simply just learning. And like the word says, starting to show ourselves approved. And as we navigate the scriptures with that mentality and that posture, right? The right heart posture to receive his word, that's when the veils truly begin to lift and we understand. Because when we read just to read or read just to say, oh, we know this, oh, we're not, that's not gonna transform us. When we are transformed through his word is when we are humble and, like I said, ready to let go. And then as we are being transformed, truly wisdom then comes. I believe that transformation must come first before wisdom comes. Because if wisdom comes first, then that's a very fine line. It's almost like you're, how do you say, flirting with just pride. Because pride comes in with knowledge and meaning knowledge, but not a heart that's prostrated in front of him. Does that make
It
sense?
reminds me of like surrender. Like you have to have a
Yes.
surrendered heart because you
I
have
forgot
to
to
be
share my
ready
thing.
to
Yes.
obey what you're learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just realized I was not sharing my screen here. Okay. So having said that, let's begin. Thank you once again, Ali, for the beautiful opening prayer. We're gonna begin with we're gonna read the entire chapter 2. It's shorter today, the chapter. Doesn't mean that it's less deep, but it's definitely shorter. So let's read it, all together, and then we'll break it apart like how we've been doing. So just if you could, you do not have the NKJV because I'm gonna share here from the NKJV actually.
Is your Bible NKJV?
It is.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, but I might have a lot of papers in between. Give me 1 second. I'll see if you could read it for me because and I say you because you're closest to me, so the speaker's gonna pick it up. Oh, you have NKGB? Oh, okay, there you go.
Okay. So you want me to read the whole
The
chapter?
whole chapter 2, yes, correct.
Thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished, and on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then the Most High blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which the Most High had created and made. This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created. In the day that the Most High made the earth and the heavens, before any plant of the field was in the earth, and before any herb of the field had grown. For the Most High had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But
Oops,
amid
hold on. I accidentally went too far. Okay, verse 6. Sorry. What was it? Verse 6 or verse 7? Verse 7. 6. Okay.
But a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Most High formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. The Most High planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Most High made every tree grow that is pleasant to sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it parted and became four river heads. The name of the first is Pishan. It is the one which skirts the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. Bdellium and the onyx stone are there. The name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one which goes around the whole land of Cush. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. It is the one which goes toward the east of Assyria. The fourth river is the Euphrates. Then the Most High took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. And the Most High commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it you shall surely die. And the Most High said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground the Most High formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper comparable to him. And the Most High caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Most High had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed.
Amen. Okay. So we have a lot of a few different themes within this chapter that I like to call little themes. I mean, they all tie that back to one big story. But I am going to break it down as best as possible. Obviously, bringing connecting scriptures. If you guys have any questions at all, or anything you guys want to share, please, like I always say, interrupt me, raise your hand, put it in the chat. You guys over here, just over here in person, don't speak all at once. You already know, because then nobody can hear once the recording is it's completed. But please, nonetheless, feel free to share, because this is not a one-man show. This is for all of us to come together and learn. I'm just facilitating this study. Having said that, I'm going to go now and share. You guys can see it on your phones?
Yeah.
Yeah? Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and share the introduction before we break it down kind of like verse by verse, right? So in essence, I'm bringing in the essence of chapter 2 here. We have, and I like to subtitle this chapter, The Garden, the Man, and the Bride. So pay attention to the use of words that I'm using already, because these are the themes that are going to make sense at the end of this study of chapter 2. Okay, so Genesis 2 zooms in on the details of mankind's creation, the Garden of Eden, Adam's assignment, and the formation of the woman. These are the key things. I know it might seem like, okay, yeah, duh, that's what we just read, but you're going to see how deep it goes, because that's everything with the word. It never just stays with like, oh, creation, and then it was poof, and the end, right? There's always so many layers to just like that one topic alone. Like, for example, like we spoke last week, just the Garden of Eden alone has like so many like subtext that it's like, bro, you know? So we're gonna talk more about the composition of Garden of Eden. We're gonna talk about Adam's assignment and the formation of woman, and we're gonna bring it into everything else in scriptures and how it leads to us today. Because everything about the Bible from the beginning, like I said last week, the beginning declares the end, says prophet Isaiah. And I mean, the Most High through prophet Isaiah, right? And so it is very imperative to understand the beginning, because once you really get the beginning, you'll get everything else. And everything else would just make so much sense. And it leads you to be more passionate about his word, because it's very different when you just kind of know a topic than when you know. You know, like when you know something, it becomes part of you. And when it becomes part of you, it's so much easier to live it out. You know what I mean? Like from the inside out to live it out. So let's understand in depth, you know, with the help, obviously, of his Ruach HaKodesh, his Holy Spirit, let's understand what chapter 2 is all about. Well, the whole Bible, but tonight in chapter 2, right? So in Genesis, if Genesis 1 shows the order of creation, which we will touch upon again today because it goes back into it. Then Genesis 2 shows the heart of the creator, which we're going to see it. Oh, I'm already excited. I'm already excited. The heart of the creator, his desire for relationship, partnership, covenant, and unity. And again, it ties back in even to like Alina was praying right before we started the study. Like thanking Abba for the understanding of the seventh day of rest. And I don't have crazy deep connections because that's a whole other study on its own, by the way. The Sabbath day, that's woof. That could go for days. So I'm not gonna go too deep into that tonight. However, I do have some correlating precepts and just understanding how even the Sabbath day from creation, how it leads to not only us today, but even the millennial reign and even the tabernacle. Guys, it's just like it's mind-blowing. So, speaking of creation order and tabernacle order, I'm going to introduce with that. Why? Because verse 2, actually, let's go back to verse 2 just so you guys can see it together with me and you don't say, what is she talking about? So verse 2, it says, on the seventh day, the Most High ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. So I'm going to read some correlating precepts with verses 1 and 2 really quick before I go to this slide, actually. So it kind of makes more sense. Psalms 33, verse 6 says, by the word of the Adon, the heavens were made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth. That's just adding confirmation of what we studied last week, that it was the Adon, meaning Messiah himself is the one that created. It was through the word that the heavens were made and all the hosts, basically all creation was made. If you have any questions on this, and you're new joining us today, I know you are joining us for the first time, you may want to go back and I have it on YouTube, watch the study on chapter 1 because this will make more sense because I took more time explaining this, okay? Or if you are online, same thing. Go back to chapter 1. Now, Exodus 29 through 11. 6 days. Then this is already now, and we understand now that this is, yes, Abba, but through Messiah guiding Moses and speaking this to Moses. Again, the word speaking. He said, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Adon, your Elohim. You in it you shall do no work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Most High has made the heavens and the earth, meaning the Adon, made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore, the Adon blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So I'm going to take a stoppage here because I explained last week how why I don't use the Lord, why I choose not to use it because it could get confusing which who's who's the Father, who's the Son. Last week, I took my time with scriptures, not me making it up, pointing how the Lord, in the context of Genesis 1 and now 2, is literally the Son, is literally the creator of all, confirmed in John 1, confirmed in Hebrews, confirmed through all scriptures and book. We read so many last week. Again, guys, if you don't know, go back and you'll see what I'm talking about. But now, this we know that it was the Son who then creates. And the Son rests on the seventh day, which obviously makes sense because the whole millennial reign is going to be reigned by the Son. And it is considered the Sabbath rest, right? When we are with him. Now, understanding this makes so much sense to go back to the ancient path, right? Because a lot of people will come and say, but Jesus did away with this, right? Jesus did it all. He fulfilled the law. Therefore, we don't need to do all these things. But understanding that he was from the beginning and understanding that he was actually the one who blessed the Sabbath and hallowed it. Yes, it's confirmed. Yes, thank you, Jess. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. And so it makes even more sense when you read it because a lot of people will read the New Testament without context of the Old Testament, right? And they'll say, oh, and Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. Okay, what does that mean? Well, in Exodus 29 through 11, it literally details for you what it means. He literally rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Adon, meaning the Lord, blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. It's confirming what he did from the beginning of the creation. A direct connection. I know. Isn't it awesome? So now we confirm that this was Messiah, right? And we see again Exodus 40:32 through 34. Whenever they went into the tabernacle, and this is a connection that it's mind blowing. Let's read it and reread it if necessary. This is, by the way, let me give you a little bit of context on this verse. This has to do when they were uh, building the tabernacle and putting it together, and before they, inaugurated it and blessed it, right? And basically put it to work, right? So check this out. It says, whenever they went into the tabernacle of meeting, and when they came near the altar, they washed as the Adon had commanded Moses. And he raised up the cord all around the tabernacle and the altar and hung it up the screen of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. Keywords here, right? Finished the work. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord, the Adon, filled the tabernacle. What does this mean? A direct connection with tabernacle. When Moses finished the work, what does that sound like? Literally creation. When he finished the work, he rested on the seventh day, meaning the 6 days of creation was work for him, right? And on the seventh day, he rested, which I can imagine him in his full glory. So when Moses finished the work in the tabernacle, verse 34, the cloud covered the tabernacle. And who was the cloud if not Messiah himself? His glory, right? The cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. It was literally the essence, physical essence of his glory, right? And so the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Adon filled the tabernacle. So the reason why I'm sharing this is now this slide for it to make more sense, and you don't see that I'm making stuff up. So there is, when we look into creation, we see that there is a direct connection with creation, the order of creation and the order of the tabernacle. So we see that the 7-day creation pattern reappears in Exodus, like I just said. Genesis 2:2, the Most High finishes his work and rests on the seventh day. I meant to put here the Adon, right? Messiah. Exodus 40:32 through 34, we see that Moses finishes the work of the tabernacle and the glory filled it. Ooh, those letters didn't went past, but yeah, that's what it says there. So I have a few images of what the tabernacle looked like in case you've never seen it. But here, this particular image here in the middle is very interesting because everything, I just use this as an example, right? But everything to do with the tabernacle, I even saw a video on a study by Armagito. If you guys remember who he is, Jairo used to share those videos a lot. Yeah. Okay. So he did a very amazing study on the tabernacle and how the details of the tabernacle really it's like kind of like a foreshadow of even of us, what we look anatomically inside, like our cells, our atoms, our veins, everything within us resembles the tabernacle. And it's crazy. And it makes sense. So I use this picture here in the middle because here you see the definition, not a definition, an example. I know it's small, but it's basically what was inside the Holy of Holies, right? It says the first layer was fine linen, then you see goat's hair, then you see ram skins, which ram skins comes from a lamb, obviously, and then you see the badger skins. So all of that, it's basically like how do I say that? Like a shadow of what we look like physically.
It reminds me,
you know?
like how we're like, we have the flesh and then we have the Holy Spirit and the soul. And the tabernacle is like the outer courts, the holy places, and the holy of holies. Yeah.
And it goes crazy because even like the heart, how it hosts his, like his breath, like the minute that our breath, like ruach, which breath in Hebrew is ruach, the minute that breath leaves the body, the heart stops pumping. It literally stops, right? And so think about it this way: the minute the ruach leaves, there's no heart. So it's almost like the heart is like that holy of holies within the tabernacle. Woo, there's just so many layers, girl. Yeah.
How like in the tabernacle, like all these little threads of like scarlet, and it reminds me of like our veins and stuff. Like we're so all connected. Like.
And do you guys remember that everything within the tabernacle is gold? Well, there's gold, silver, and bronze, right? But all those three components, metals, we have them within us, but specifically gold. it's been found that we have gold within us. As a matter of fact, the doctors know to the that we can get healed with gold. Yet they don't give us that, but yes, because we have that as a component. Yes, it's crazy. Like there's just so many things. Like we were just talking about a friend of mine earlier about colloidal silver, for example. He was telling me like, oh, because I was sharing how we were sick not so long ago. He's like, oh, have you guys tried colloidal silver? I'm like, yeah, I live by that. And then he was like, oh, me and my wife, we make our own. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like teach me, like how do you do that? And then he was literally telling me that he uses coins, silver coins. I'm like, duh, of course. Why didn't I think of that? It's silver. We have silver within us, like brr, and it's healing to the body. But anyway, let me not get too carried away with that. Let me just take you back to these images. So just to show you that the order, obviously, the tabernacle did not take 7 days to get built. However, it's just to show you the foreshadow of even the building of the tabernacle, because remember, the tabernacle was after the fall of man, and it was the first step after they even broke the covenant. Okay, what do I mean by that? Before the sin of the golden calf, they were in a eternal covenant that was given through Abraham, right? Then comes the sin of the golden calf. That covenant made with them was broken because they immediately broke the commandments, right? So we know the story. Moses intercedes for the people. Abba gives them a second chance by pure mercy and now brings a temporary covenant. A temporary covenant, meaning by through the Levitical priesthood. And that's where the physical tabernacle comes in, right? But even that building of that tabernacle, which was meant to be temporary, is literally to signify what we are and what we are to become, right? In the spiritual, it's an embodiment of us, which takes it back to the order of creation. Now, does that make sense? Which is why there is the fire, the purification by fire. There is the washing through the waters, which we spoke about that last week. And then there is the Ark of the Covenant that holds his commandments inside, the manna, which is the show, or the manna, meaning his provision of the word, the way I see it. There's so many connections with that, and the Holy of Holies, all of it, right? So the Most High builds his dwelling places in the same holy order. We have 6 days of work leading to one day of completion. Then we have creation equals dwelling place for humanity. Tabernacle equals dwelling place for the Most High among his people, because we know that that temporary tabernacle was the way that he dwelled with his people, among his people. We know that in the millennial reign, he won't have a physical temple, but he dwells with us. Right now, in this age, still don't have a physical temple, but now we become the tabernacle. We become the temple. He dwells within us. Granted, if we are, worthy of him dwelling within us, he doesn't dwell where there's impurity, right? So there's the same pattern, same language. Creation is the first sanctuary, in other words. So I thought it was very interesting to put this together. I also want to show how Adam, as the overseer in the creation, in the Garden of Eden, which parallels the priestly assignment, right, of the Levitical priesthood. So we have Adam's role mirrors the priests of Israel. In Genesis 2, we see that Adam is placed in the garden to work it and to serve and to keep it, meaning guard it, which is literally what the Levites had to do. So there is a direct connection with that. Let me show you Bible verses here. Hold on.
I also love how like the seventh day was like made in the day of creation. So this was like before the fall of man, before the commandments were given. So that's like something that, when people say the law's done away with, but it was given during creation. So it's like, how could that even be done away with?
And going back to the Sabbath day, let's read some Bible verses that go with that. I have a couple. Okay, so verse 3, where it says, Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work, which the Most High the Adon had created and made. And let's connect that with Isaiah 58:13, where it says, If you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Adon honorable, and shall honor him, not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words. That's the prophet Isaiah speaking to, even as a foreshadow, because all the prophecies were twofold, right? So we're for that time, but we're also for the future. So he's talking about keeping the Sabbath day. And it is actually not Isaiah speaking. Obviously, it is the Most High through Isaiah who's saying, if you do this, and then he goes how, because I cut it here at 13, but he goes on how he blesses and he keeps you in covenant. Basically, that is the sign between him and us, right? Exodus 16, 28, 30. And the Adon said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? And again, we know this was Messiah speaking, right? See, for the Adon has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you on the sixth day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. And again, this was when the manna was given. But that's just an example of how it was so important to him for people to actually trust him and obey him. Sorry, just trust him and obey him, like understand that I will provide. Just do as you are told. Just obey my commandments and keep my holy days, right? And so we have on verse 4 where it says, this is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that the Adon Elohim made the heaven and the earth. And I just want to connect a couple Bible verses with that. Genesis 1:1, we have in the beginning, the Adon created the heavens and the earth. And we confirm that God, word God over there, it's literally the word that created, right? Numbers 7:1. Now it came to pass when Moses had finished setting up the tabernacle that he anointed it and consecrated it and all its furnishings, and the altar and all its utensils. So he anointed them and consecrated them. And why am I putting that here? Because we see the same exact thing on verse 3 where it says, he blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. And on verse 4 where it says, this is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that the Most High made the heavens and the earth, right? So it is kind of like a parallel there. How he had to like consecrate everything because of the fact that it was foreshadowing creation. Psalms 90 verse 1. Lord, you have been our dwelling place in all generations. So that's obviously Messiah, and it's confirming that he is our dwelling place. So everything about the tabernacle has to do with him, and it has to do with us. Now, verse 5, where it says, before any plant of the field was in the earth, and before any herb of the field had grown, for the Adon had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. Okay, this is where we're gonna go now. The comparison between the priestly duties and the Levitical priesthood and of Adam being the first priest, right? Notice here that it says that there was no man to till the ground. So he had, even before he was created, an assignment, right? So let's connect with verse 5, Genesis 13:10. I didn't put it. I just noticed. Oh, no, it's here. Sorry. Uh, no, I'm not. That's just, I put it, but I just remember that it had to do with being well watered. But never mind. I'm not going to read that. Let's continue on verse 7, actually. Verse 7. And the Adon formed man of the dust. Sorry. I just realized that verse 5. Sorry, guys. Sorry. That's why I'm off. I'm like, what am I reading here? Verse 5. Let's go back. Where it says there was no man to till the ground. These are the verses. It wasn't Genesis 13. It was Genesis 1:11. There you go. Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed it's in itself on the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed in itself according to its kind. And the Adon saw that it was good. Why am I bringing that? Because we just talked about that Adam was created to take care of that basically. Everything else had to take care of itself. Like the seeds know what to do, right? The grass knows what to do. They yield their seed, they do that. However, man was created to till the earth, right? The ground. So Genesis 7:4, for after 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made. This obviously was after the flood. This is, we're going to read more on this later on with Noah, but this is just to confirm that everything that he created, he later destroys because of the fall of men. Job 5:10, he gives rain on the earth and sends waters on the fields. And this is actually confirming both verses, confirming on verse 5 where it says that he causes the rain on the earth, right? And then Job 38:26, to cause it to rain on a land where there is no one, a wilderness in which there is no man, to satisfy the desolate waste and cause to spring forth the growth of tender grass. Has the rain a father? Or who has begotten the drops of dew? And again, this is towards the end of Job. And I believe this is when the Most High already starts, if I'm not mistaken, um, um, putting him to question, right? Like, who made all these things, right? And so now going back to verse 6, where it says, but a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. That's the one that was I was connecting with Genesis 13:10, by the way. Sorry for the confusion. So now, verse 7, and the Adon formed men of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living thing. Now, there's so much just there alone. But before we go there, I do want to see and show you what the Targum says because it adds a few interesting lines to that verse that brings more understanding. And in case you guys didn't join us last week, the Targums, just to go back, it's a much older translation than the Masoretic text. Therefore, it preserves a lot more details that have been lost with translation, with the Bibles that you and I have today. So I always like to, double check and see, obviously, with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, to see what other understanding we can gather together. So Genesis 2, verse 7, from the direct translation of the Aramaic text, it says, and the Adon created men in two formations. Notice that it says two formations, one that is not mentioned in the canon. The first one, it says, and took dust from the place of the house of the sanctuary. Does that not sound like the tabernacle to you? Number one, and from the four winds of the world, and mixed from all the waters of the world, and created him red, black, and white, and breathed into his nostrils the inspiration of life. And there was in the body of Adam the inspiration of a speaking spirit unto the illumination of the eyes and the hearing of the ears. So notice how there is so much more detail here, which is why I want to unpack this one. Number one, we know that man came from dust. Yes, it says it like that in the canon. But notice the connections with the sanctuary. Notice the connections with the four winds of the world. Interestingly,
He's gonna pop up in like four corners of the earth.
yes, when he comes back, he calls his elect from all four corners of the earth. Not only that, the tabernacle in itself, physically speaking, also has four corners. So many connections there. He also makes them from all the waters of the world. Remember what we spoke about last week about the throne of heaven being in waters and the heaven literally being a marine kingdom, like it is under waters because the basically the heavens, which is in Hebrew the rakia, which is the dome, right? The dome, it says, that separates the waters above from the waters below. So we're basically in a little snow globe, right? And so notice that it says from the mix from all the waters of the world, right? And then it talks about the details creating him red, black, and white, which all those colors do not lead to a white person how we have we've been taught, right? At the very least, it's they sound kind of like Dominican looking to me, in my opinion, right? So, and breathe into his nostrils. And I throw Dominicans because we're dark skinned. That's why I'm not picking a race over another. It's just I happen to be Dominican. I happen to look all those colors, right? Red, black, and white. But anyhow, I'm like the perfect example. So he breathed into his nostrils the inspiration of life. And what did we speak about what ruach literally means in Hebrew? It's breath. So his spirit, oh my gosh, to me, it always blows my mind whenever I think about, like how we spoke about last week, like his spirit was hovering over the face of the deep, you know? So his spirit, literally his breath. So the same spirit that was the force of the Father through the Son that created is the same spirit that he breathes in us. Woo! I can't. But yes. So, and then we see then where it says, and there was in the body of Adam the inspiration of a speaking spirit, right? Because why? We were created in his image. And so the illumination of the eyes and the hearing of the ears. And I love the illumination of the eyes and that the Targums add because I believe we are light beings. Yes, I do still believe we were created with flesh and like an anatomical parts in our body, like the cell, the heart, all of that, I believe was still in the Garden of Eden, but in a spiritual sense, right? And I do believe that all those components that we have were glorified, meaning they shine through. Like I think maybe I'm wrong. I think we kind of are probably see-through-ish,
Yeah,
you know,
translucent.
translucent, yes, right, and like very vibrant and I don't know. I put some graphics there, yes, AI generated or whatever, but because I kind of see us like that. Let me actually see the chat really quick.
That's how like the spirit is. It's like
I mean, oh, I see Shakira was talking about the colloidal silver. Oh yeah, colloidal silver is a girl. That's how we got healed from the flu. But anyway, yes, the Sabbath is a delight, absolutely. And then Shekinah's talking about all the colors of light together make a white light. Interesting. But pigment all put together makes a dark, muddy to black color. So varying on pigments creates the different shades. I love it. It also reminds me of the what's this called? The thing, the oh my gosh, I used it for one of the studies, the eighth day. The prism, how the prism like it shows like literally all the different colors which I believe stem from the throne of heaven and that we possess ourselves, right? Spiritually speaking, obviously. So now going back, this was all verse 7. Okay, so verse 7, we read it both in the canon and the Targum. So let's do some connecting scriptures with verse 7. We have we're going to be reading it next week, but let's have a preview. Chapter 3, verse 19 and 23, where it says, in the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and dust you shall return. Verse 23, therefore the Adon sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. And I love that it always goes back that we come from the ground, because understanding that we come from the ground makes it so much more relatable to understand the tree metaphor.
yes.
Because a seed is placed underground and it bears fruit from within the ground. We're gonna speak a lot more about that next week, chapter 3 and chapter 4. How we are literal trees according to scriptures, and so that's why I do believe that he had to then till the ground after the fall of man.
That's why I said we shall know them by their fruits. 'Cause
Yes.
we are trees.
We are all trees, and it's all spiritual fruit, obviously, but we are spiritual trees, right? And then we see confirmation with that Ecclesiastes 12:7. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to the Most High who gave it. So again, this flesh that we have right now will decompose on the ground. It is literally dust. Without his breath, we are just dust. And we've seen that. We see like when you find the fossils, where's the flesh? It's gone. Like it's just bones. And even the bones with time, right? I feel like yes, yes. Yes. Another connecting precept, Psalms 103, verse 14. For he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. We are dust. For now, we are, right?
Yeah.
Job 33, verse 4. The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. And that is literal. Literal. Because without his breath, we are dust. Like we are nothing.
It's like a corpse.
You know, like that, yes. You know, like that saying, like, without him, I'm nothing. It's like literally, we're nothing. Literally, we're nothing. When someone dies, they just like, that's it. That's it. That's not the person. The person in there is gone. We also have Genesis 7:22, all in whose nostrils was the breath of the spirit of life, all that was on the dry land died. And this is talking about after the flood. Look what it says. All in whose nostril was the breath of the spirit of life, meaning his ruach, his spirit, right? All that was on the dry land died. In other words, if the spirit is gone from the body, you are dead, both physically and spiritually. First Corinthians 15:45. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. And we're gonna touch upon that later. But yes, let me now go back. Yes, Shekinah is saying, I see men as trees. That is a direct quote from Mark, the book of Mark, when the blind man was healed. Messiah said, "What do you see?" And he says, I see men as trees." Exactly like that, I think, right? Yes.
I actually, sorry, really quick. I saw a picture today how like the picture of the human heart without like with just the I guess the little nerve endings, it literally looks exactly like a tree, like exactly.
So okay, so I went back to, I don't know if you can see it there.
Yeah.
I went back to the pictures to my slide, and I put the first picture here of men coming out of dust. And it's basically what we are, just dust, right? The second picture, again, all AI generated, guys, but it is what it is. We gotta work with them and not with them, with the times, whatever. But I do see the idea like so well conveyed through these images. We see men coming out of dust, and then you kind of see him as a tree here on the second one, and to me was like, ooh. That is powerful, that image, because we are literally, even like our veins, like what Jess was saying, it within us. And I'm going to talk about a lot more about that next week, by the way. But even like our anatomy looks like a tree. Our thumbs are. We'll talk more about that next week. But I like this image because of that reason. Men coming out of dust, kind of like a tree. This third image over here, I kind of see it like as a tree of life and the ramifications under, and that's literally who we are. Like kind produces like kind. We are like him. We were created in his image, right? And then obviously this is just the comparison with Adam and the priestly assignment, right? And so I just want to show this, going back to the idea of what I was sharing before with Adam and the priesthood, that the same Hebrew verbs that describe priestly duties are showed with creation with Adam. Numbers 37, I have it here. The priest shall keep guard and minister, right? Numbers 8:26. The Levites assist and serve in the tabernacle. So in other words, Adam equals the first priest king of earth. Garden of Eden is his first temple. Work plus guard equals priestly. Okay. So, in other words, the priesthood did not begin with Aaron, it began with Adam in the Garden of Eden. And we know he failed at it miserably. And we're going to get to that very soon. So, and the comparing with woman and everything in between. So, going back now to verse 8. The Adon Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man who he had formed. So this is exactly what I showed in the slide in regards to that was the first temple, the Garden of Eden. He was to take care of it, right? He was placed there just as the Levites were placed to do the work in the tabernacle, right? So, sorry. Can you pass that? And let me see, I have enough battery. I don't need to have it plugged in. So verse 8, I do want to read it also from the Targums. Can't move this thing. Okay, there. Verse 8 from the Targum's translation. Oh, I passed it. It's here. It says, and a garden from the Eden of the just was planted by the word. Notice how here's a lot more specific. That is Messiah as creator, right? It was planted by the word of the Adon before the creation of the world. And he made there to dwell the man when he had created him. Let's read that again. And a garden from the Eden of the just meaning of the righteous. What else is also of the righteous? The holy of holies in the tabernacle. Only the righteous, the purified, the set apart could walk in, right? So a garden, and again, the metaphor is continuous, guys. The garden, the trees, right? The garden from Eden of the just was planted by Messiah himself, the Word, right? The Word of the Most High, before the creation of the world. And he made there to dwell the man when he had created him. So he makes this basically tabernacle type setting, calls it a Garden of Eden, and places Adam, the first priest. That's why I wanted to read from the Targums, because it adds understanding. We have Matthew 25:30. Yes, Matthew 25:34. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Now, after having read the Targums, do you understand that the Garden of Eden was created for the just, meaning for the righteous, right? For his holy priesthood, which the first priest was Adam, right? Now, he's talking about now his second coming and when he's separating the sheep from the goat, right? But look what he says on his right hand, which we know the right hand is Messiah. On his right hand, he says, come, you blessed of my father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world, meaning from creation. Going back to the beginning. Isaiah 51:3, for the Adon will comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places. He will make her wilderness like Eden and her desert like the garden of the Adon. Joy and gladness will be found in it, thanksgiving and the voice of melody. It kind of reminds me of the voice of many waters. So again, the beginning declares the end. Yes, go ahead.
I was thinking too in the Matthew 25:34 verse, how he says like, come you blessed of my father. Every time I see blessed now, I always think of the commandments because of like the blessing and the cursing. Like, like we're blessed when we keep his commandments. So
That's a good observation.
yeah.
I like that. That's really good. We also have Genesis 3:23-24. We'll read it again next week, but a preview. Therefore, the Adon sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he has taken. This is what I was saying before, right? So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. So we're gonna break this down next week, a preview, but that just goes with the fact that he was placed in a place for the just, for the righteous. When he sins, he is removed. Not only is he removed, that he is completely segregated. Like he is not allowed to go in. He's banned, okay, with flaming swords, right? So he's not allowed in. So Genesis 4:16, then Cain went out from the presence of the Adon and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So I bring this in. This is when obviously Cain is kicked out for doing the what he did. But we see a mention of Eden. In other words, notice how the presence of the Adon is directly connected to Eden here. I don't know if you are understanding that. It says Cain went out of the presence. Obviously, it's talking about a physical presence because he had an encounter with him in that moment when the Most High reprimanded him, kicked him out, put a mark on him, and all these things. However, his presence is directly tied in with it being near in proximity of Eden. In other words, Eden is a spiritual place within the earth. That's why the New Jerusalem comes down from heaven and onto the holy mountain, how it's mentioned throughout scriptures. So Eden is here. That's why he puts cherubim to guard it. It's crazy. I know. It's awesome. Yes, go.
Oh no,
Okay.
Go ahead.
I also want to add because I know like it says that the Garden of Eden is in the east, so like it could have been like southwest or north, but it says east because if you look at the Hebrew term, it says kadem or kadim, which means ancient, internal, everlasting, and before. So I would see that word east, I'd be like, what does that mean? So I looked into it and then it all makes sense. How it's all like it's ancient, it's internal, like it's forever.
I love
I
that.
thought that was cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ezekiel, because
I was thinking that too, that how he comes from the east,
Yes.
Yeah, eyes to the east.
Yes.
Yes. I love that. And also how the Freemasons from even back then, they copy everything, imitate everything, and how they worship the sun towards the east.
Yeah.
Right? Like meaning the actual sun, like the luminary.
Sun does rise from the east, so
It
right?
does, and it
Yes.
sets on the west. Yes. So at the rising of the sun, they do this whole worship thing, but not it's a fallen deity. It's not
Yeah.
to the creator, right? But yeah, interesting connections, guys.
Can I?
Yes, yes, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking of when you're reading the Genesis 3:23 verse, how the flaming sword. I was also thinking about like the tabernacle, how like if the priest went in with and sin, he would die, and it was like reminding me like if you pass the sword, you're gonna die because like the presence of the Most High.
Dwells
Like,
directly there. Like the tree of life is
Yeah.
literally, I love that. And there's so many connections with the Garden of Eden and the
Oh,
tabernacle.
yeah.
It's so crazy. That's why I always tell people because people are like, oh, but back in the day, people would die if they didn't keep the Sabbath, for example. Like they would die on the spot. I'm like, guys, yes, it was literal, but now it's spiritual. Don't think just because people are not dropping dead in front of you that they're not dead. You know, they're dead spiritually because Eden is spiritual. You know, we're not gonna walk in it there, but it's still guarded with flaming fires. Like we're not, you know what I mean? Physically, we can't walk in it, but why is it guarded? Because it's spiritual. And I like that connection you said. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so verse 9, where it says, and out of the ground the Adon made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We're going to talk a lot more about this next week, so I'm not going to go into depth with this comparison. However, understand that this is talking about Messiah and Lucifer. We have the tree of life again being referenced as a tree, and then we have Lucifer being referenced as another tree. The tree of life, Messiah, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, Lucifer, right? Satan. Let's just call him Satan. Interestingly, people read this, right? And they look at it as, oh, they were trees. They're referenced as tree as a metaphor. What makes you think that the fruit was literal?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
It's not the spirit.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
But it's so crazy because they'll reference Messiah. Oh, yeah, the tree of life was Jesus. The tree of life is Messiah. The tree of life is Christ. You know? But then, oh, but they bit the apple. You know what I mean? Like, it's not literal, guys. It's a metaphor. And remember, we are also trees. It's a spiritual. But we're going to get into that. Connecting with verse 9, I do want to read verse 9 from the Targums really quickly. And the Adon made to grow from the ground every tree that was desirable to behold and good to eat. Stop it right there because we see a distinction. We see a distinction of desirable to behold, meaning with the eyes, and good to eat. There's a distinction between spiritual and, if you think about it, physical. There's trees that is good to look at, and I don't think it means, just, oh, what a pretty tree. It has flowers, And there's the trees that are good to eat. And I do believe, again, that the food in Eden was also spiritual.
Yes.
Just saying. But, and then it says, and the tree of life in the midst of the garden, whose height, I love this part because this is Messiah, whose height was a journey of 500 years, and the tree of whose fruit who ate would distinguish between good and evil. So notice how when it speaks about the tree of life, it just says its journey is 500 years, right? But when it speaks about the tree of knowledge of good and evil, in the Targum's translation, it says, whose fruit they who ate would distinguish between good and evil, which makes sense why the Most High would command Adam not to eat of the fruit of that tree, right? And again, I don't think it meant a literal fruit. So let's connect some Bible verses here. Ezekiel 31, verse 8. This is again a prophecy that has to do with the Garden of Eden. But look what it says. The cedars in the Garden of the Adon could not hide it. This is talking about the Garden of Eden, okay? The fir trees were not like its boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like its branches. No tree in the garden of God was like it in beauty. Okay, so here is comparing the tree of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is comparing it to the tree of life. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's comparing it to the tree of life. And look how it's making reference to actual trees, right? The cedars, the fir trees, the chestnut. And speaking of branches, but it's talking about Messiah. Or It could have been talking also about Satan. Let's say it was, because I'm not sure. I would have to go back and read the whole thing in context. However, the whole point of it is to show you that they were referenced as trees, right? Genesis 3:22. Then the Adon said, behold, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. This is after the fall. We'll talk about it next week. And now, lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So, are you seeing what I'm seeing here? Because it's talking about the fruit of the tree of life, right? And it's saying we're going to ban him from here because now he knows good and evil. He cannot come and partake of the fruit of tree of life. So what is that fruit? Is it another apple or is it a pear now? So just things that, giving you sneak peeks for next week to keep in mind so that your mind is ready to receive, right? Revelation 2:7. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of the Most High. We are commanded to eat of the tree of life once we are righteous, once we make it, once we pass the test, right? But in a fallen state, we are forbidden, which is why the cherubim guard the entrance to the Garden of Eden with swords of fire. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
I think it's not up here first.
Yes. Revelations, yes, absolutely, Yasmin. Revelations 22:2 and 14, in the middle of its street, this is speaking of the New Jerusalem, and on either side of the river was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, and each yielding its fruit every month. And again, we know the 12 fruits is the 12 tribes, absolutely. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Blessed are those who do his commandments. That goes direct connection with what Jessica was talking about earlier. Blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life. Woo! I don't know you guys, but I'm like, oh my God. And may enter through the gates into the city. I don't know how you can read this and say we are not to keep his commandments. How? How can you tell me that you've studied the word? Not even in context, just this alone. Come on. Like, how do you read this and tell me, no, you are being legalistic? That is too much. It's literally there from the beginning. Look at the direct connection from the Garden of Eden, from the tree of life, from the 12 fruits representing the 12 tribes of Israel, which are his people in covenant, the righteous, the elect, right? The direct connection with blessed, what Jessica was talking about, are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life. Because what did we just read? That only those that are righteous have right to the tree of life, which is Messiah, and enter through the gate into the city. And the city only has 12 gates. So, oh gosh, it's a full circle. The beginning declares the freaking end. Like, oh my goodness, I love his word. It makes me so like in love with him much more. Deuteronomy 139. Moreover, your little ones and your children who you say will be victims, who today have no knowledge of good and evil, they shall go in there. To them I will give it, and they shall possess it. What is this talking about? Context of this is the children that were born within the wilderness, and these were the children, the only people aside from Caleb and Joshua that were allowed to enter into the promised land because they had no knowledge of good and evil. It's the same exact concept from the very beginning. New Jerusalem is the promised land, right? It's the same story throughout, the same cohesive story from beginning to end. It started in the Garden of Eden. It didn't work. It went out into the wilderness. It still didn't work. And he still sends his son now to redeem us through him so that it could finally work through him so that we can enter through the 12 gates and partake of the tree of life. But understand that we are not to partake of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. If not, we won't make it to the promised land. That is literally why I put that Deuteronomy 139 precept there. Let me just go really quick. Oh my gosh, Nina said something so powerful right now. I just saw it. She said, maybe that's why we feel so connected to earth and water. Yes, girl, yes. You know what's crazy? When you're sick, go barefoot on the ground and watch your body heal.
Yeah.
It is a fact. I know it sounds really crazy and like campuno, even like she knows what I mean by campuno, like campesino, but it's like facts. We come from the ground. We are literal trees, you know? It's crazy. It's crazy, crazy. And water, let me not even go with the water connection. That's just another 70% water and the oxygen because it's its breath, right? Absolutely. A tree as well, and it needs the ground. So I love it. I love it. Let me
I
close the
literally
chat.
have like been thinking, especially lately, like I'm always meditating on how like the creation is literally a reflection of us. Like we're like everything goes hand in hand. Like us with
Absolutely.
like the rest of creation. Like
Oh yeah.
like everything. Like even the fruits, like with certain body parts that it like is beneficial.
Yes,
You
like
see it. Like everything is like connected. Like
Everything.
coincidence.
There's no coincidence. We have a perfect creator who meticulously counted every nerve ending, everything, every cell, everything is in Spanish fríamente calculado, you know. It's just we are a product of who he is. Yes.
even like the four rivers, like there's connections with the brain too.
Sorry, my brain is just I can't handle it.
Stuff like that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so now I'm gonna start making connections with those in the garden, the riverheads that you're talking about, and the stones that are mentioned here. Okay, so let's dig in. Verse 10. Now a river. Interesting, right? Remember how the New Jerusalem has the four rivers as well? Same exact thing because it's the Garden of Eden. All right. Now a river went out of Eden to water the garden. The garden. And from there it parted and became four river heads. Okay. So let's connect three Bible verses with that. We have Ezekiel 28:14. You were the anointed. This is speaking about Lucifer here, by the way, but just so to confirm, you were the anointed. Yes, you were the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God, meaning this is the Garden of Eden, right? The New Jerusalem. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones. So this is just to confirm that he was the tree of knowledge of good and evil who was in the garden, right? Genesis 3:14. So the Adon said to the serpent, which is the same individual we just referenced in Ezekiel 28, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. Notice how he is to eat dust. We're gonna talk a lot about that next week. I don't know why I'm connecting.
Ezekiel 28? Ezekiel.
Sorry, 28. I'm just looking, why is this connecting with verse 10? I think I'm going somewhere with this. I don't remember, but I did this like last week, guys, from work. I was so excited to put this study together. I'm like, I want to do it.
Yeah.
All right, so verse 10. Yes, it was Ezekiel 28:14. Let me see something because I don't remember why I put this. Oh, no, these connections go. I see them now. These connections go more with verse 11. Okay, okay, I know what I'm talking about now. Okay, so verse 11. The name of the first is Pishon. It is the one who skirts the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. Sorry, where there is gold. This is again, this is still talking about the Garden of Eden. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's a river that is named Pishon. It's the one who skirts the whole earth, the land of Havilah, within the Garden of Eden, right? And where there is gold. It's literally telling you there's gold in the Garden of Eden, right? Which we know there's also gold in the New Jerusalem because it's the same thing. You know, the streets are made of gold, right? Whatever. So notice how it says on verse 12 also, and the gold of the land is good. Bdellium and the onyx stones are there. And they speak of gold, but then they go specifically to those two stones, right? And then it tells you, I know I'm reading it all together, but I'm going to break them down together. And then it tells you the name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one who goes around the whole land of Cush, and the third is Hiddekel, right? Okay, so I'm going to stop right there because we see three rivers being mentioned: Pishon, Gihon, and Hiddekel. Sorry that I'm butchering up the names, but you get what I'm saying. And then the mention of the stone. So we're gonna go there now. So now let's connect 12, 13, and 14. That's what I was trying to connect with these verses here. Um, okay, so I'm going to bring a connection with Solomon just because it makes mention of one of those rivers here. It says, the king also said to them, take with you the servants of the Adon. I mean, no, of your Lord, not the Adon, of your Lord, meaning Solomon. Have Solomon, my son, ride on my own mule and take him down to Gihon. So notice how a direct connection there to that river, Gihon. It's meant that is made mention of in Garden of Eden. And this is, I'm in First Kings, I'm pretty sure this is when before the temple, before he made the temple, right? Before he was even deemed worthy because, he asked for a righteous thing and proved to be righteous. Now we have Genesis 25:18. They dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go toward Assyria. He died in the presence of all his brethren. So now this is later on. This is in the times of Abraham, right? But we see the mention again of another river that is mentioned in the Garden of Eden, which is Havilah. So that's just to show you that the Most High, I'm bringing these scriptures to show you that the Most High had his people physically around the Garden of Eden, which leads me to think that Canaan was Eden. You know, the promised land? Yes, which is why Jerusalem was there. Think about it. Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem. So,
Like see in the end times that like Judah will go to Jerusalem.
yes.
Which is like
Yes. So the land of Israel, meaning not the northern kingdom, because remember they were split and they weren't two separate places, but the house of Judah, meaning the southern kingdom, which went to Jerusalem, Judea, right? That's where I believe Eden was. We don't know where that physical Jerusalem is today because I don't believe in our maps, sorry, that we currently have. I know many will say Jerusalem over there in the Middle East. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not sure that that's the real one. I'm not. If they mess with the shape of the earth, what else can they mess with? Everything in between, right? So I don't know. I don't know who's who, right? But I'll tell you this much: wherever that is, that's where Garden of Eden is. Obviously in a spiritual realm, right? And that's where the New Jerusalem will descend to. Yes. So going back to connecting with the stones the bdellium and the onyx, right? These are cool. We have Numbers 11:7. Now the manna, check this out. Remember the manna, the bread that the Most High gave to his people for all those 40 years that he provided with, that he actually kept proof of that bread within the Ark of the Covenant. Interestingly, look what it says. Now the manna was like coriander seed, and its color, it compares it like the color of bdellium, a stone which is present in the Garden of Eden. We also see the mention of the onyx stones, right? Exodus 25:7. Onyx stones and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate. We know that the onyx stone, okay, so each tribe, let me just show you the picture here. Hold on.
the onyx one's on the shoulder, right?
Yeah, but it's also for the tribe of Joseph. So the onyx stone, let me go back here. You see this breastplate over here, right? This one over here should be the onyx. It doesn't look black. Freaking AI didn't get it together. But yes, this one is the tribe of Joseph. Okay. Interestingly, the tribe of Joseph is the one that is given. Remember, he becomes his firstborn. So he's given firstborn rights, right? Also, not shown in this AI image are two black onyx stones that were supposed to be on each corner here of the priest's ephod. Carry, meaning like all his weight, or I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, yes, it does. He carries basically all of Israel with the authority of those onyx stones on each side of his shoulder. So I want to show you that image to now. Oh my goodness. Where's the share? Oh, sorry, it's right here. So now make the connections with the rest of the scriptures that I have for that. Because we have that the onyx stones were from the Garden of Eden, right? We see Ezekiel 28:13. And this is again speaking of Lucifer. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering: the sardius, the topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and jasper, the sapphire, the turquoise, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created. And again, this is very similar than Adam. And this is very similar because Lucifer fell from his glory. You see, because he was also created in glory. So we see the stones being mentioned here. And then we see Exodus 28:9 when he gives a command to the priesthood, right? Then you shall take 2 onyx stones and engrave them on the names of the sons of Israel. So basically, the government here on the shoulders of the priest carrying all of the stones representing all the 12 tribes of Israel. Interesting, the same stones that are mentioned of the composition of what Lucifer once was, because he was also an Elohim, a mighty one, right? A God, in other words, and we are to become gods as well. First Chronicles 29:2. Check this out. When it comes to the building of the house, of the tabernacle, right? This is Solomon building the temple now, which is the actual physical tabernacle he builds. Now, for the house of my Elohim, I have prepared with all my might gold for things to be made of gold, silver for things of silver, bronze for things of bronze, iron for the things of iron, wood for things of wood, onyx stones to be set, glistening stones of various colors, all kinds of precious stones, and marble slabs in abundance. So this is the building of the temple. However, notice how he separates onyx stones from the rest of the stones. And I don't think he did that by coincidence. And so I want to make mention just of this chapter here in Daniel, because he mentions the river Tigris, which Tigris is also known as, I think, Gihon. I had it here. Let me see.
Yeah, when you guys are reading that on my
Yeah.
translation, I have the third river is the Tigris.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for confirming that, because I wasn't sure if it was the third or okay. So the third river is oh no, hey, I had it wrong. It's Hikadel. So here, Hikadel, and if you click on it, it'll say it here. It says or Tigris. Okay. So we see this river being mentioned, referenced by Daniel the prophet. It says, on the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is the Tigris, which is the third river that stems from the Garden of Eden. Okay. So I'm gonna go now to show my slides. Let me move this out of the way. So, okay, once again, let's go back. Genesis 2:12, where it says, and the gold of the land is good, bdellium and the onyx stone are there. Okay, so we have onyx stone and bdellium. And this is a picture over here of what bdellium looks like, which is probably what manna, the color of manna, what it looked like according to scripture. Up here, this is onyx. Onyx is a black stone, which I happen to find very interesting that the stone representing all of Israel happens to be black. Just saying. I don't know. I'm just gonna throw that out there, right? And it comes from there. I'm just whatever. Maybe it's coincidence. Who knows? But anyway, Eden's gemstones, right, equals the priestly breastplate, which is Messiah's government, right? The priestly breastplate representing all 12 tribes of Israel. It's literally his people, his church, his bride, and the government. Now let's connect it with Genesis 2:12, Exodus 28:9, and Isaiah. So Genesis 2:12, once again, Eden, it tells us that Eden is surrounded by onyx stone and bdellium. Exodus 28:9, the priest ephod carries 2 onyx stones with the names of Israel, meaning the 2 onyx stones up here, one on each shoulder, carrying all of Israel on the breastplate, right? Isaiah 9:6, the government, speaking of Messiah, will be upon his shoulders, right? Remember that the Levitical priesthood is a foreshadow of Messiah's priesthood, right? And so I don't think, again, by coincidence. And so the connections with this are that Eden stones equal the priestly stones. Remember how everything in Eden was kind of like, or better yet, everything in the tabernacle within the Levitical priesthood is not a foreshadow, a shadow, meaning copy paste from what was in Eden, right? Yeah. And so the priest carries Israel on his shoulders. Messiah then carries his people, government, on his shoulders, right? So the imagery of this begins in Eden. Woo! I'm telling you, it all goes back to the beginning. So what decorated Eden's borders later decorated the priest and ultimately symbolizes Messiah's rule. And I like this tree that I found because I kind of think of it as a tree of life full of the stones. So shiny. I love it. All right. So I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. We're going to go to the woman now. I said this wasn't gonna be that long, but I'm taking my time, guys. Sorry, I just love this. Before I forget, I do want to read, connecting with verse 11, a portion from Sirach that I didn't get to read. So once again, verse 11, where it talks about Pishon and Havilah, right? With that, there is gold. There's a direct connection in the Apocrypha and a connection with his obedience to his commandments with that, right? Look what it says beginning in verse, this is chapter 24 of Sirach, and beginning verse 22, I'm including 22 through 29. And it says, whoever obeys me will not be put to shame, and those who work with my help will not sin. All this is the book of the covenant of the Most High God, the law which Moses commanded us as an inheritance for the congregations of Jacob. Check this out. Look at the connection with that. And now verse 25. It fills men with wisdom like the Pishon. You see it? And like the Tigris at the time of the first fruits. It makes them full of understanding like the Euphrates and like the Jordan at harvest time. It makes instruction shine forth like lights, like the Gihon at the time of vintage. Just as the first man did not know her perfectly, the last one has not fathomed her. For her thought is more abundant than the sea. This is speaking of wisdom. And her counsel deeper than the great abyss, referring to wisdom. Wisdom is directly connected to obeying his commandments and and make reference to the rivers that are being made mention of from the Garden of Eden. So I just thought it was very, very interesting. I didn't want to leave this one out. All right. All right. All right. Let's moving right along. We now have, so we spoke about how he took man and he put him in the garden and to tend it, to keep it, right? The direct connection with Adam being the first priest in the Garden of Eden prior to the fall, right? We spoke about the commandment that verse 16. I'm going to go actually, yeah, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to go to verse 16 and verse 17. Okay. Where it says, and the Adon commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in that day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. So we see here he gives a direct commandment to the first priest, to Adam, right? He gives a direct commandment. It's very clear, right? All right, let's make the connections with this. What verse was that again? Hold on. I forgot. Oh, verse 17. Okay, so let's make these connections. So verse 17, we have Genesis 3. And again, this is a lot of sneak peeks from next week. But I'm going to read a few verses. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the fields which the Adon had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Do you see any add-ons there to the commandment he gave Adam? We're going to talk about that next week, but just start already seeing what I see. Verse 3, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High has said, you shall not eat, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Verse 11, sorry. And he said, who told you that you were naked? This is after they sin, right? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat? Verse 17. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. So we see already the curse as a result of the disobedience of men. I just want you guys to start seeing the commandment he gave directly to the priest and what the serpent tells the wife. Okay? Just want you to start seeing that. Leviticus 15:31. Thus you shall separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, lest they die in their uncleanness when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. And I'm bringing this precept because the reason why Adam and Eve, both, but were separated from the Garden of Eden was because they became unclean. Are you understanding? Are you following me with this for next week? Okay. And that's why, again, as it was in Garden of Eden, is then in the tabernacle, right? And so he tells them that he is to separate the ones that are unclean from the midst of his presence, because if not, they will die in their uncleanness. What you were saying, it makes perfect sense, right? We're not to defile his tabernacle, meaning where his presence dwells, which is why man is separated immediately from the Garden of Eden when he became unclean. Romans 6:23. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Yahshua HaMashiach, right? We know that the wages of sin leads us to die, and not so much a physical death, but a spiritual one, right? Romans 5:12. Therefore, just as though one man, no, sorry. Again, therefore, just as through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus death spread to all men because all sinned. So we see that through Adam came the curse, right? Came death through sin. 1 Corinthians 15:21 through 22. For since by men came death, by men also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, even so in Christ all shall be made alive. And we're going to make that comparison later between Adam and Messiah. 1 Corinthians 11:8 through 9. For man is not from woman. And I'm going to take my time here. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. Nobody gave it to me, but I'm going to take it. For man is not made from woman, but woman from men. Nor was man created for the woman, but woman for the men. A lot of people will use Paul out of context to shut women up. Okay, and I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna use some of the verses, like for example, 1 Timothy 2:13. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And all what Paul is saying is truth, but in the context of what he's saying, he's taking it back to the original order in the Garden of Eden and what should have been established before the fall, which we are now through the redemption of Messiah, re-bringing things back how they were in the beginning, or attempting to anyhow, right? All right, so let me stop right there. This is verse 17. Okay, so now I'm gonna share my screen. Let me just check the chat really quick. Oh, look. Shekinah said, why we need to control our tongues. So she added, and the snake closed that slip up to create doubt. Absolutely. And we're gonna talk a lot more about that next week. But I'm gonna give my understanding through all this study and all the scriptures of what it means for the assignment of the woman and what took really place here, right? So the assignment before the woman, let's break this down. So before Eve is formed, in chapter 2, we see that obviously Adam, number one, is giving a place. He's giving Eden, which is delight and the presence, right? Where the presence dwell, just as in the Holy of Holies, right? Number two, he's giving a purpose, which is to cultivate and guard it, just as the Levitical priesthood was to tend and take care of the work of the tabernacle, right? Which is the work of the ministry, really. Number three, he gives men a command. Do not eat of the tree of good and evil. That's it, plain and simple. A command, right? And number four, he gives a relationship, which is a direct fellowship with the Adon. All he wanted was to dwell with them in their midst, and he gives the command for them not to eat of this fruit so that sin does not enter, because sin separates them from him. He did not desire this, which is why he gives this command. Now, this order matters. Why? Because the man receives instruction first so that he can teach and that he can lead. I'm going to say that again. The man, Adam, received the instruction first. Notice here, he gives the instruction to Adam, not to Eve. Do you understand that? He gave the instruction to Adam, not to Eve. And the purpose of it is just as the Levitical priesthood was, so that he could teach and that he could lead. Now, having said that, I'm going to take it back here. Remember, we spoke about this last week, that the only thing that the Adon said that it was not good was for men to be alone. Everything else, he said that it was more than good. He said, it is indeed good, right? He made the earth, the firmament, the star, everything, the luminaries, everything was great, except it is not good for man to be alone. And then he adds, I will make him a helper comparable to him. This is why I want to take my time. Okay. So the only not good in the creation story is the absence of woman, in other words, right? This is massive for several reasons. Number one, woman is the solution to the only not good of the Most High. The solution was woman, and we spoke a little bit about this, right? In other words, this elevates our value. Sorry, men that are present, but it does elevate our value, our purpose, and our role in all creation from the very beginning, right? Number two, she is made a helper, a comparable helper, right? Which clearly indicates that she is in no way inferior to him. In the Hebrew, the word helper is ezer or ezer. I don't know how to pronounce that. From the Strong's H 5828. And we see that it's used most often by the Most High as Israel's helper. So whenever you see that Strong's, you're gonna see it also the same exact meaning as the Most High as Israel's helper, and it's the same thing that He gives to the woman, right? So a woman is not less, in other words, but a divinely empowered counterpart. And number three, she is comparable to him. So the phrase means that she's equal in strength, matching nature, perfect counterpart, and face to face partner. Not above or below, but face to face partner, right? So she is not above him, like I said, nor beneath him. She is formed beside him, from him, for him, and with him. Pretty much the same way Adam is from Messiah, we are from men, right? We are to become, it's like a replica, just like Messiah prayed that they become one with me, just as I am one with you. So the woman is a representation of his church. So let's speak about the formation of woman, because understanding the formation of woman will lead you to understand his bride, right? So Eve is not created from Adam's head to rule over him, nor from his feet to be walked on, but from his rib. If you notice, anatomically speaking, the rib is close to the heart, right? Under his arm for protection. The rib cage literally protects the heart. Okay?
So that's why I wanted that to ring. Yeah. It's like
That is
basically.
so true. I didn't even think of that.
And I'm like,
That is so crazy. Okay. So we see here,
yeah, it's a thing.
it's a thing. I've heard about it. Now, I haven't proven it, but I've heard about it. So well, I only feel two, but I'm pretty sure there's. But anyway, so going back to creation of woman, this only means unity, covenant, shared nature, and oneness. Oneness, what does it mean? This is why Adam says, "Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh," and this is ancient covenant language. It's like a vow. Pretty much like a vow, right? Interestingly, because when people get married, they share a vow. So marriage as prophecy, Messiah and his bride. Now we're going to take it into the spiritual aspect, right? Genesis 2 is not just history, guys. I've always said it, right? It's prophecy in picture form. Paul explains this directly in Ephesians 5. So if you read in context, you see this. Adam equals Messiah, and Eve is the church or the bride. But I say Adam equals Messiah, not because Adam was Messiah, but he was supposed to be the priest like Messiah. He just failed him, which is why there is a second Adam, because the first one failed to teach the bride correctly. I don't know if you guys are following me here. Okay. It's a foreshadowing connection here. Adam was put to sleep. Check this out. Check this out. Because it blew my mind as I was typing it. Adam was put to sleep. It's a foreshadowing of Messiah's death. Messiah had to die, right? Adam's side opened. Messiah's side was pierced through the rib cage, guys. Woo! Okay. A bride taken from Adam's body, and the bride is taken from Messiah, which is his body, his church, right? Birth from Messiah's sacrifice, which is why when he dies, we are redeemed. And now we have the power to be born again. The bride is literally formed from him. Okay? So from Adam, right? Eve is brought to the man. Check this out. Believers are presented to Messiah. And I forgot to bring in the paragraph, the Bible verse where it talks about the parable where it says that the father presents the bride to the bridegroom. Remember that one to Matthew? That when he talks about when he's like looking for to throw a wedding to his son, preparing a wedding to his son. He basically prepares the bride, or it's in Revelations too, where he presents adorned as a bride for the groom. I'm trying to think exactly what.
It says like present yourselves as a chastened bride.
Yes, yes. So we are presented by the Father to the Son, right? So two become one flesh, meaning Adam and Eve, right? In the Garden of Eden. Now, we become one with him through covenant. Now, Genesis 2 is the first picture of the gospel. That's why I always say the gospel begins in Genesis.
Thank you for the people like want to say that that's not true.
I know, right?
I said that to somebody once and they were like so mad. They were like, no, it's not. And I was like,
Matthew, who said it's in Genesis? All right. So the instruction issue was Adam's failure. Like I said, let's talk about it. Okay. So scripture shows the command not to eat was given before Eve even existed. We read it in Genesis 2:16 through 17, right? Adam was responsible to teach what he received, right? Like we've been taught it was supposed to be imparted by Adam, by the head, right? So when Eve repeats the command in Genesis 3, she adds, and you shall not touch it. Remember when we read it that I said, what do you guys see there? The Most High never said that.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
She added because she wasn't taught correctly, right? Which is why I said this suggests that Adam taught her the instruction, but not accurately or deeply enough.
Which shows the importance that we need the man.
Yes.
The teachers.
I was gonna say the importance of not like when you're led by the wrong person.
Yes.
You yourself where you're gonna fall.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. This goes into so many different topics.
We can wrestle.
Yes.
Men
Absolutely. However, and I agree 100,000% with that, we need men to rise up. But we are in a society or in a world, let's just speak in a world overall, that Satan knows that. And the men are right now like not only womanized, but they are disempowered.
Demasculated.
Demasculated completely. And now the women are rising up to teach. Yes. Was that the original intent from the beginning? It was given to Adam, but because Adam failed, Messiah then steps in, which is what leads me to this understanding. Two major themes here, right? Why the wife learns first. Okay, so Paul's instructions that we see are given in 1 Timothy 2, which is all the times that are thrown into why women shouldn't teach, right? Are not literally speaking about degrading women. They are rooted in the context of Genesis. If you even read everything to do with Paul will literally says as Eve. He'll compare it to Eve because it was rooted in creation in the beginning. So in other words, Eve was deceived because she received secondhand teaching. She needed proper instruction before assuming authority. The church or the bride, which is the same thing, must also learn from the husband, which is Messiah. We must learn from him first. Once taught and equipped, she teaches others. And that's the difference that people do not understand today. That today we have Messiah teaching us through his Ruach HaKodesh, through his word. Yes. Do we want the men to rise up? Absolutely. They still have a higher authority in that sense, right? In that sense, not because they're above us or we are beneath, because remember, we're created face to face, but because of the delegated priesthood. However, because this is not verbatim, it's more a metaphor, it's not misogamy. Okay? A lot of people will take it as that. Understand that the church mirrors Eve. Literally. So if we understand that, why are we then removing women from teaching the gospel, from teaching one another, right? The bride of Messiah must, number one, sit under his instruction. Number two, learn his words accurately, remain submitted under his covering, and then go out and make disciples of all the world. That's what the word says. As a matter of fact, in Matthew 24, when he gave the commandment to go then and make disciples, there wasn't only men there. There were women there. It wasn't just the 12. It was all those that were gathered together. When he ascended to heaven, he gave the commandment, go now and make disciples of all the nations. Going to make disciples will entail in some form of another, and I'm not saying everyone needs to teach, but will entail in one form of another to teach his word. right? So we don't teach from ourselves. We teach what the husband taught us. And by the husband, I mean Messiah. Okay? Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I just love what you're saying, and I saw how Shekinah added the verse about
Oh,
how
I didn't
it
see
says, like,
that.
there's neither male or female, and like I'm thinking of too, like men are referred to as the bride, and we are referred to as a priesthood as women,
As well.
and it's
Absolutely.
like all of this is spiritual.
Thank
It's
you for
not
adding that.
like,
Absolutely. Because women are also included in the you are now my holy priesthood. Yes, we know that in the times of the Levitical priesthood, women were not in the priesthood, but we have to understand something, guys. It was a temporary covenant and it was a fallen state. The redemption of that is to bring everyone as it was supposed to be from the beginning. How Eve was supposed to be one with men, face to face, the same, right? From his rib, just as the church comes from Messiah, which is why I added that before I went into this. So thank you for adding that. That is facts. Genesis 2, what is actually showing us is that women completes creation. Women solves the only not good of the Adon, right? Women is a prophetic picture of the redeemed bride. Women, a woman carries the imagery of covenant, and woman is a reflection of Messiah's beloved. A woman is irreplaceable in the mission of spreading truth, which is why we see so many connections with women going and bringing in disciples to Messiah, even in the times of Paul, helping alongside with Paul building the church and the ministry. We see a woman in Paul's letters, which is why I always say people take Paul out of context, because if you read in context, then nothing else makes sense. Like, I mean, what people say, right? Because Paul within the Roman church names Junia, I think it's her name, as an apostle. Literally commands her for her overseeing the church while he was gone, while he was in prison. He makes mention of Phoebe, he makes mention of Lydia, Priscilla, of the great women who work alongside with him in building the church. So again, it's not to say that, oh, now, oh, we take over, now we the women pastors, and rabata, you know? I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, I'm even against that. That's disgusting. Don't do that. However, work alongside with men. Work together as his church, as the bride, alongside with men. And that's when the true unity comes. You see, I love when Orlando, for example, asks me, hey, can you help me teach? Because I work alongside with him. You get me? I work alongside with my husband when we teach here. I work alongside. It's how it's supposed to be. Get me?
brothers and sisters.
Yes, we are one body. There is no creation narrative without the woman. So think about it. There is no creation narrative without her. And so now comparing that to Adam's bride and Messiah's bride. Adam's bride, which is Eve. She was formed from his side, given to him in covenant, learned secondhand, and was deceived. Now, Messiah's bride, which is us, his church, right? Born from his pierced side, where blood and water came out through, interestingly, right? That's what's in the tabernacle. Joined to him in covenant, taught directly through his word and his ruach, his spirit, and redeemed and restored. So you see that comparison there. So let's, yes.
I was thinking, because I know you were saying how, and even the last slide, but you were saying how Adam was like the first priest and then Messiah became the high priest. And then I was looking for the book and in the First Corinthians, for the First Corinthians 15:45, it says that, thus it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being, and the last Adam became the life-giving spirit.
Yes.
As the Messiah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I just wanted to.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. Okay, now I'm gonna go. We're almost done, but I want to go where it says, sorry, I just wanna, where is it that it says not good for him to be alone? Okay, we read that one, verse 19. We read that one. No. Okay, so we just see here, just going back, recapping, we see here on verse 19 where it says, and whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. So we see the authority there given to Adam as a priest, right? Adam was the one who was to delegate and teach, right? We see verse 20, so Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper comparable to him. So notice how he was given the authority to do all these things, to name the cattle, to basically rule over them, but he needed a helper. Are you guys seeing what I see here?
Yeah.
Like he's naming the thing, but you need a helper. In other words, men need a helper to even teach. We complete them. Thank you.
Yeah.
He needed a helper, and that was from the garden. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, so
Yes.
would God need a helper then, in a way? Like,
Messiah? I mean,
Oh yeah, he's our helper. He is our teacher. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And so we see verse 21. You wanted to say something?
No, because you're saying like the Most High Creator.
Yeah,
the
see what I'm
things that
saying?
He actually does like to partner with us, and like even with
Sorry, I didn't
Messiah,
understand the question. But yes, he's not only our helper, but he needs a helper. He needs the body.
creation,
Yes.
he needs Messiah to like bring forth everything like
Thank
through
you.
him. So in a sense, I mean,
it's because I have a bunch of questions, but I'll just-
No, that's right. You can ask, please. I do believe, obviously, he doesn't. Okay, so let me rephrase that. It's not like he needs a helper, he desires a helper. Let's rephrase that.
No, it's not that. It's just like,
Yeah.
about like Gnostic knowledge and all that, like crazy stuff.
A lot of that crazy stuff. Actually comes from the word. And they just don't know the whole story.
But see, it's like, that's
Yeah.
why I'm like, oh my God, this is all like.
Yeah, they just don't know the whole story. But a lot of it, because remember, Satan spreads truth in every little religion and every little thing. But he puts truth with lies, so it gets more confusing. You get me? But even them, they have some truth. They just don't know it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some truth in some. I'm not saying everything is, though. Remember, it's mixed with lies. A bunch of.
Just touch me up.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk. Absolutely. All right. So we see once again, verse 21, where it says, and the Adon caused a deep sleep. I do want to talk about this because this deep sleep that he caused Adam to fall on, right, is the same deep sleep that Abraham, when he did a covenant with Abraham. Remember when he goes over the pieces of the animals? We're going to obviously get to that eventually. I think it's in Genesis 15. No, it's in Genesis, it's in the canon as well, yeah. That's when he does the covenant with Abraham and he causes a deep sleep on Abraham. So I believe this deep sleep is not just like falling asleep. I believe this deep sleep is like you are in the spirit, like in that moment. And I think because obviously Adam was in the Garden of Eden, but however, he caused a deep sleep. So that only means that it was a super spiritual thing, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm sleeping.
that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not just snoring here. So I wanted to read connecting with that, verse 21. It's Genesis 15. Yeah, there it is. Genesis 15, verse 12. Now, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. He wasn't even named Abraham yet because this was prior to the promise. Yeah. And behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. And so, okay, so my NKJV here just says horror and a great darkness fell upon him. But if you look into the other translations, you see that it was a deep sleep as well. So it's like that state of very spiritual. And it's kind of like what I see when John, I'm sorry?
Think about that.
No, he died. But it's,
Very
yeah, it's twofold, but no, that was, he literally died. But no, I was gonna say in Revelation, when John was in the spirit and he was able to see the New Jerusalem, he was able to see the thrones of heaven, it was the same type of sleep. You get me? Like it's a out of your body experience, kind of like Enoch when he would have those encounters. So yeah. And we see a mention here. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me just make sure everyone is muted. Okay. So sorry, Shekinah had said something. I want to read it in regards to the male and female disciples. She said his male disciples weren't threatened with the presence of the women in the ministry. They lifted them up. Absolutely, sister. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Everything's spiritual. Like obviously
It
we're
is.
still in this physical realm, but like like
Everything
we're
is.
one in Messiah. Like, in
Yeah,
the
which is
spirit.
why I can't wait. Like, honestly, like sometimes we get so caught up and so distracted with the things of this world and this life, honestly. And then we have to stop and think, like, this is not even our real life. This is not our real world.
Yeah.
Yes, like Solomon, with all his wisdom, says in Ecclesiastes, like at the end of the day, all is vanity, but even then, he allows us to enjoy this life, to have basically, to paraphrase Ecclesiastes, like if he's given you like money and a good job and a good family, enjoy this life, go on vacation. I'm paraphrasing the whole book of Ecclesiastes, basically, right? But at the end of the day, all is vanity, and we're nothing but breath, and it's all gonna stay here. But while you're here, just enjoy it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Some suffer, some don't. Some have riches, some don't, some don't. But at the end of the day, we're gonna die. This is not our life. So, and then he ends with the conclusion of the whole matter is to fear the Most High and to keep His commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. Because at the end, we will all be judged for what we did here, basically, right? Bottom line, good job there, Solomon. But going back to connecting with the deep sleep, there's a reference of not a spiritual sleep, but I want to read it. It's when David was, when Saul was following David to kill him, right? So we read in 1 Samuel 26:12. So David took the spear and the jug by water by Saul's head, and they got away, and no man saw or knew it or awoke, for they were all asleep because a deep sleep from the Adon had fallen on them. So I make this reference here because, well, I didn't make the reference. I bring this reference here to show that the Most High can cause a deep sleep, even to protect, for example, in this case, David, which was kind of like a supernatural sleep. A deep sleep is not just like you snoring deep, you know, like for him to be able to remove the spear from his hand and him not awake is because it was like he removed like I don't know how to explain it if it's the spirit that's removed from the body, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. So in other words, that's what the Most High did with Adam when he created Eve. He caused him to go in this deep sleep where he literally removed his side to create.
Because it says a deep sleep from the Most High fell upon him. So it's something like
Yes,
supernatural.
absolutely. Absolutely. He caused it, yes. And then on 22, we see then the rib which the Adon had taken from man, he made into a woman. His rib made it into a woman, right? And he brought her to the man. Notice how he brings her to the man the same way he presents the bride, the church, to Messiah. That's the comparison I was doing before. And I do want to read with that Genesis 29:14. And Laban said to him, and this is Abraham's nephew. I forgot exactly what part of in the family hierarchy there, but surely you are my bone and my flesh, and he stayed with him for a month. This is, I believe, when Isaac. I mean, I say Isaac,
And
right?
Rebecca.
And Rebecca, yes, yes, yes.
And
So
he
we
said-
see that same main mention of when the two become one flesh. We also see, oh wait, no, I was supposed to read Genesis 3:20 here. Yeah. Genesis 3:20. Sorry, this is, but yeah, it still connects. But Genesis 3:20, and Adam called his wife named Eve because because she was the mother of all living things. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that next week. But yes, she was the mother of all living. So without her creation, then what's not possible? In other words, First Timothy 2:13, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. You see, every single time Paul brings it back. Whenever he's talking about the order of men and women, he brings it back to creation of Adam and Eve because it's a metaphor. And Paul understood that. Hebrews 13:4, marriage is honorable among all and the bed undefiled, but fornicators and adulterers God will judge. So this is comparing marriage with what took place in the Garden of Eden when the two became one flesh, and as well as our marriage with Messiah, the bride with the groom, right? And then the whole Genesis 29:14 was just connecting with here where it says bone of my verse 23, yes, when it says bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and connecting also with that, Ephesians 5:28. And this is I love this when Paul brings it into context. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. You see, it's like we're one. We're the same people, you know? Yeah, exactly. As their own body. He who loves his wife loves himself. Verse 29, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Adon does the church. You see now the metaphor, the connection. Yeah. Paul understood it. Verse 30, for we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. Notice how now he's talking about both men and women are members of his body, the body of believers to do the work of the ministry. Get it? 1 Corinthians 11, 8 through 9. And that's when they take, and I want to bring it up because that's the one they use. For men is not from woman, but woman from men. Nor was man created for the woman, but woman for the men. And yes, in essence, that is true, what Paul is saying. But it's not to say that woman is less. It's literally woman came from men. Therefore, we are to be under his covering, under his authority. But if my covering and my authority is telling me, help me teach, come on now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's the same idea. I did want to say also how, for example, Paul is using all this. He uses a Bible verse that I don't remember if I put it here. I don't think I did. But he uses one Bible verse that a lot of people like to use when it says that Eve was deceived. Not the man, but the woman was deceived, right? Yes. But that all goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's the metaphor of the fact that Adam failed to teach her correctly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so in that sense, the woman needs to be quiet and learn first. But our main master and teacher and rabbi of all is our Messiah. Not to say that we should not be under authority of a man. Just want to clarify that. I'm very clear with that. There is an order, man, woman, right? Just as Messiah, the church, right?
Yes.
It's the same. So,
there's only one Savior.
yes, absolutely. And just to show that Messiah quoted directly from what is in Genesis, it's found in Matthew 19:5, where it says, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Again, the same beautiful metaphor from the beginning. Ephesians 5:31, Paul quotes exactly the same thing again. It's right there. And then Mark 10:6 through 8, Messiah makes it very clear, but from the beginning of the creation, the Most High or the Adon made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. But here I like that it adds from the beginning of creation, which we know he was quoting from that, but still. 1 Corinthians 6:16, Paul again quoting the same thing. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a harlot is one body with her? For the two, he says, shall become one flesh. Exactly, which we're going to get to that next week. And here is a preview. Verse 7 and 10 from Genesis 3. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. So he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. Why am I sharing this preview? This is verse 25, when he says, and they were both naked, and the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. This is before the fall, okay? This is before the fall. What I read was after the fall, which is in chapter 3. I do want to read this from the Targums really quickly because it adds some details. Verse 25 from the Targums. The Targumim. Hey, I skipped it. It's right here. Okay. And both of them were wise. Notice that it adds wise here because being righteous was being wise, right? Being obedient to his commandments. Now, Adam and his wife, but they were not faithful or truthful in their glory, which is, I like that, I like how it says it there, because that is literally what it means to be naked. They were not faithful, which is why they were naked, meaning they sinned, right? And the wisdom fell. They literally forsook the wisdom. And we have Psalms. Speaking of wisdom, Psalms 49:13, this is the way of those who are foolish and of their posterity who approve their sayings. Selah. Exodus 20:26, nor shall you go up. Oh, this is comparing to the nakedness. This is for the priest. Check this out. Nor shall you go up by steps to my altar. that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. So, yes.
Isn't it saying for 49:13 that like when you come in agreement with someone's sin, like you yourself, you're being foolish.
Yes.
So like
Absolutely.
we're not only to
That is true.
abstain from sin, but when I come and I tell you it's okay what you're doing, I myself, I'm
Yeah, partaking of that sin.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, dear.
What about when there's like Noah had like three kids, and then it was like, oh, they saw his father's nakedness or something.
Oh, we'll get there. Just bear with me. Keep coming. Keep showing up because it's gonna get good. Like those TV series that people watch that they're like on season 1, season 2. I'm telling you right now, complete the season because it's about to get real. And it's like, yes, every week's gonna be like a cliffhanger. Dun dun dun. Yes, yes. Shekinah shared, I'm gonna read it. Shekinah shared, man, finding my identity in Mashiach had me loving myself so much to want to stop doing the things that hurt me, sin, which hurts the Most High. So freaking lootly, amen. And I agree with you 100,000%. And to sum it all up, we have the sanctuary theme. Remember, I said how there's different themes within chapter 2? Well, we have Eden, foreshadowing the tabernacle, a foreshadow of Eden. Messiah, a foreshadow of all of it, which is his church. Eden equals first dwelling place. Tabernacle equals dwelling restored among Israel, which was their temporary covering, remember? Then Messiah equals the Adon dwelling among us. Now the church equals the living temples for his spirit. Woo! Pentecostal shake. So they all follow the same pattern: order, holiness, presence, and rest. It all goes back to the 7th-day rest, the full circle, guys. Of full circles. Hey, guys, the AI imagery killing it here. I'm sorry. I gotta give it. Because they know. They have all the knowledge. So that's why I like the images, because I'm like, they get it. They can see it. I'm sorry. I'm not giving them glory at all. Abba, yours is the glory, not theirs. So Genesis 2, in essence, it's a love story. It's a prophecy, a marriage covenant, and a warning. We're going to get to that because he gives a commandment. We're going to see what happens after, right? It shows the value of woman, the responsibility of man, and the gospel hidden in the beginning. It's all a metaphor. Messiah and his bride. Thank you for breaking bread with us. Oh, she wants to share something before we end the recording. Go ahead, Jess. It's okay.
No, I was thinking something really beautiful because I was like imagining when Abba presented the woman to Adam, like he was probably really happy. Like,
Wow.
it's like,
Yes.
and
He was like, dang.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm joking.
Messiah, like, when we're presented to him as his bride, like he's probably gonna be so happy.
Oh.
And it reminds me of the verse that says like we were the joy set before him.
Oh my
Or, like,
gosh. My heart.
he's probably gonna be so he is gonna be so happy.
To me, it always goes back to the fact that everything, he made man in his image, right? And the fact that he realized man needs a helper, like, it's not good for men to be alone. It goes back to him. He did not desire to be alone. He desired us. He desired his bride. He desired us as his church. It is not good for Messiah. And to answer your question, when you said, does God need a helper? I don't think he needs one. I think he desires one.
Yeah.
He desires to dwell with us, with his people. So, having said that, I pray that this blessed you. I pray it brought better understanding on his word, and specifically on chapter 2 of Genesis. And I pray that it only motivates you to keep showing up and to keep opening your Bibles, to keep taking notes, because it's about to get
Juicy.
very juicy. Have a Baruch, you guys.